Okay, so you went out and you dug all these beautiful clams. Now what you gonna do with them? Well, the rule around here is you catch it, you clean it. So first of all, here's the equipment you need. You need a big bowl or some similar container that you put the clams in after you cut them out of the shell. That's the first stage of the process. And you also need a container, another bowl or something. In this case, I'm just going to use a cut-off milk bottle to throw in the ooky stuff, the part that you don't want to use. Throw that in there to be disposed of. And then you need a third bowl to put the finished product in. A cutting board and an oyster knife. Now, for oyster knives, I have been using this ancient one, which is stainless steel, and it doesn't have much temper to it. And as you can see, I've bent the blade, and that's to modify this knife, especially for doing clams. Now, most oyster knives have a straight blade, but you need a one with mild steel so you can bend it without breaking it. And there's no use sharpening an oyster knife because an oyster knife scrapes against the shell and it never has an edge on it. And then the other thing you need is a nice sharp kitchen knife. And in this case, I'm just going to use my old favorite fillet knife. And sharp is spelled with a capital S, man. It is very essential that this guy be sharp. And a cutting board and clams. Now here we have, put him on my hand for size scale. This would be considered a typical size Puget Sound butter clam. You also need a bucket to keep the living clams in, and a bucket to throw the empty shells in. Now you can see the difference. Typical size. And this is one of the legendary monster butter clams from Cuts Island that we dug yesterday, or on Friday. I've had them in a live tank so they flush themselves out. And these are about the biggest butter clams that I think I've seen anywhere. So that's what I'm going to be working with today. There is an interesting one here. Clams do heal up if they get wounded. Hey, where'd he go? There he is. Okay. This guy obviously had a rough childhood. As you can see, he got his shell broken at one point, probably by a clam digger when he was a kid. But as you can see, they do heal up. Didn't hurt him much. So anyhow, let's get started. First stage of the process is to get the critter out of the shell. So for that you use the oyster knife. You look for the siphon hole, which is right there. And you cut towards the back to sever the abductor muscle. Then you start working your way around. And here we go. This is why the knife is bent, is to kind of half-assed follow the contour of the shell. Boy, these big guys are hard to do. Okay, we got the tension released, he's open. Now you do the same on the other side. We're getting there. That's a piece of meat. I'm going a little bit slower than I normally do. Okay, now I should be able to shake him out of there. Almost. Now what I would normally do is fill up this thing with clams just shucked out of the shell, but for this demonstration I'm just going to take this one all the way through the process. There's a piece of muscle came out of there. Now clam meat is such a precious commodity that I use every last bit of it. See, there's still pieces of meat left stuck to the shell where I cut the abductor muscle. And if you get all that out, it adds up over the long run and you get lots of product. And the commercial operations, they would just throw that away. But it's a nice tender piece of meat. Okay, that's about all we can get out of him. Yeah. So we throw that in the bucket. And then we go after this part. Now, the muscle, the adductor muscle, will just pull right out. Put it in the bowl. And where the gills attach to the neck, you just pull that off. Pull it off with the other end. And what you have is the stomach. Now a lot of people throw the stomach away. It's just kind of ooky. All this stuff in there is edible. And you eat that when you eat the little neck clams, when you steam them and just eat the whole thing. You know, and you eat those little bitty guys. But when they're really big like this, it's kind of ooky. And has a funky texture to it, but it's surrounded by a really good piece of meat. So what you do is you slice the stomach down to the foot and then scrape out the ooky stuff. It's a highly scientific term, it's ooky stuff. I usually leave the water dribbling while I do this. Now the stuff in the bowl or in the white cut-off milk bottle is stuff that gets disposed of. Now, at this point you decide what you want to do with them. Now there are several things you can do once you get to this point, and that is you can just pull this muscle off and this muscle and then split the neck down the middle, and you just kind of cut it into strips as best you can. Then you can roll them in the batter or either pan fry them or deep fry them. I like them deep fried, they're really good that way. But for this particular batch I'm going to turn them into chowder batch. Now you see what's in the bowl here, that's stuff that the commercial outfits would normally throw away. So, what you do is you just dice them up. Start with the neck. Cut them into chunks. Now Lee says I make the chunks too big. Maybe I do, but when you get some of my clam chowder, you're going to know you have clams in there. The outfits that make the commercial canned clam chowder, or restaurants, have one clam, they take one little piece of meat out, they tie it on a string, and then they dip it in vat after vat of the broth, and they call it clam chowder. Difference between their stuff and my stuff is I put lots and lots of clams in. And for the ookie. And there you have it. These are all ready. This could probably be diced up some more. Yeah, that's kind of big. Dice that abductor muscle up. And there we go. And when you get the parts from a whole bunch of them in there, mix it up real good so that when you make your chowder you get a good mixture of all the different parts, because the different parts have kind of different flavors and textures. So just repeat that process a whole bunch of times and you'll have yourself a whole bunch of nice clam meat to put in your favorite recipes.